Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Linda from Purple Rose Digital, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this set of 4 hidden paper clips. They are double-sided and they each have a surprise element. Some are more difficult to make, others are fairly easy, and just enjoy creating. It is a bit of a long video, so bear with me, but I'll take you through all the steps to make these beautiful hidden double-sided paper clips. So as you saw, there's one with a waterfall disc um, that flips when you pull down on the tab. This is one with a pull-out book page strip, the little pocket that it tucks into, and then you've got your surprise box with a message inside. Sorry, my lighting is not very good, so I had to shine the torch for you there so you can see the message, and you can see how you can pull them off and put them onto any place in your journal, on the top or on the sides. And they are such a great way to just add so much more interesting things to your journal. So we'll start with the waterfall disc hidden paper clip, which is probably the most difficult one of the 4. And I'm just going to flip around this mechanism that I've cut out so I can see my guidelines of where to score and fold it. So these folds are where your discs are going to be glued onto. So you need to get them as straight as possible and make sure your folds are nice and flat as well so that your mechanism glides smoothly. So you're folding it with your print facing towards you and folding it inwards with the backing paper on the inside, but mostly you'll only see that bottom part that's going to come out of your band disc that it's going to glide through. You won't really see the top part so much. Okay, so now we can glue on our first disc. I'm just going to use a normal glue stick because it's quite a small area where your glue is going to go on. And this is very important. You don't want it to go over your fold lines. So you need to glue it on that strip and not over the fold line, or your waterfall will get stuck and it won't glide smoothly. So I'm just picking out my order. You're going to start with the last one because each one is going to lie on top of the other. So you start with the last one as it's just a little bit easier. And I'm just checking my size here to see how big my glue area is, but you'll see it's quite small. That the area where you're going to put your glue is quite small. So as big as that little strip, but not the corners there, because we're working with the disc. You can trim off those corners on the mechanism, but I wouldn't recommend it because it will make the area of attachment a bit weak, if that makes sense, when you're pulling it back and forth, because we're working with cardstock, a thinner one, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. So I'm just going to place a glue sheet so that I don't go over, because if you're doing a waterfall mechanism like this, you really don't want your glue anywhere else but on the strip where it needs to go. Otherwise your waterfall is going to get stuck and glued on where it's not supposed to. Okay, so that's the first one, and I'm going to let it dry. Make sure you let them dry properly. You can just check your alignment, of course. Make sure it's in the middle, and then you can use a little weight like I do, and just make sure it dries properly before you start moving things around. You can use double-sided tape for this, but obviously you'll have to trim it because it's not a straight strip and it's very small. Okay, so I'm doing the second one now. I'm just gonna pull down that first disc to expose the second strip where I want to glue. And again, I'm not going to go over the fold lines, and I'm going to make sure it's aligned in the center. And we're going to let it dry again, and we're going to move over to the third one. And I'm just going to speed up the video here because I'm sure you'll get the hang of it quite quickly. And I'm going to continue to do the third, fourth, fifth one, and every time we let them dry properly, and remember your alignment and not to go over those fold lines. As you go along, you can test your mechanism a bit, but as I said, just be careful not to move things too much while the glue is still drying, because that can really mess up the whole thing. So that's the final disc, and again I'm just going to let that dry and then we can test it out. So while I'm leaving that to dry, we can do this base. So the inside we're leaving open. You're not going to glue that together. You're simply going to place your paper clip over that base where there's a little paper clip image, and that's it for the base. Then we're going to cover it with the base cover. So on this one, the cover is actually bigger than the base, so it fits in there, and you'll see there's a little space at the top for the paper clip, or little extra piece that will cover the paper clip. So we're going to glue on this cover, but you're going to place your glue onto the base part only, because obviously you don't want it to be completely shut at the bottom, because that's where you're going to insert your journal page. We're going to tuck your paper clip over your journal page. Okay, so as you can see, we put the glue on the base and not on the cover, because otherwise you will go over where you're supposed to glue. And then you can glue that on nice and flat, and you can let it dry properly as well. You can do this in a different order. If you first want to glue on your waterfall mechanism and then glue all of that onto the paperclip base, you can do it that way around. I first did the one side, and now I'm doing the other side of the base, making sure I'm not going over that paperclip base onto the cover of it, because then I won't be able to put that over a page. So I'm just going to make sure it's glued on properly, especially at the top where the paperclip is. If you're using a glue stick, you just have to sort of keep pressing on it so that your paperclip is covered and the glue is holding where it's supposed to. So again, I'm going to use my weight to just get that glue to really stick. You don't want your cover to come off of your base. And once that dries, we're going to glue this whole mechanism onto that base cover. But first we need to make the band that it glides through. And I'm just quickly checking that nothing is over the fold lines, and then it's going to glide properly, so I can pull it and already see that it will work nicely. I'm going to grab my two discs that will form the band. You'll see there's very faint lines on them just to help you along a bit, because that waterfall mechanism needs to be straight in the center, so aligned straight with those lines that I've got on there for you. And you'll see that the first disc needs to be over this bottom disc, so that little glue strip part there needs to stick over this band disc, otherwise your mechanism won't work properly. So you're going to align it with the bottom of that first strip that you've done, and you already see here which part is going to be glued on. It's that small little square, almost rectangle of the mechanism. That's going to be glued onto your first disc, as I'm showing you here. So I'm going to go ahead and place my glue. Again, I'm using my glue stick, and you're going to place the glue on the inside of this, and again, we don't want to go over that first fold, that first strip. So basically right up to where that fold is, your first fold, is where you're going to place your glue. And make sure you get this on properly so that your mechanism will work really well. Again, we're going to align it straight in the middle using your two lines on the sides as a guide to get it on nice and straight. You can do this the other way around. As I said, you can first actually do this part of the band, the mechanism onto the disc like that, and then your waterfall discs. If that's easier, you can do it that way around, and then glue it onto your base cover, and then the cover onto the base. So you can totally change the way you do this, but this is just how I went along with it, and it worked fine. So as long as you follow the guidelines, you should be fine. So again, I'm just checking that I'm getting it in the center. I think I'm pretty close, and it's nice and straight along those guidelines that's on the artwork. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to let that dry again. Let it dry properly, otherwise your whole waterfall mechanism will come undone. Just checking if this is glued on. It is sometimes a bit difficult over the paper clip to get your cardstock to glue together, as the paper clip is lifting it up. So just make sure that's nice and flat. You can already start seeing how it will work. That looks pretty good. It's running smoothly. So next we're going to glue on the other disc onto the back of this. And now you have to be really careful where you place your glue, because remember, some of your discs are going inside of this bigger disc, as I call it, the disc band where your mechanism glides through. So you don't want your glue to go over the size of your small waterfall discs, because then they won't be able to glide into this mechanism. So again, you want your glue on the outside of those guidelines. So obviously the guidelines are only on the one side, so you can measure and mark it for yourself if you want. Otherwise, just make sure you give it a good eyeball and not go over that size. Otherwise, your mechanism will not work. Or you can do like I'm doing, and just grab your cutout, your paper where those guidelines are on. Make sure you have the top so it's the same in the front and the back. And then you can actually use those same guidelines to just mark your your glue area, if you will, so that you don't go over. This is the trickiest part of this waterfall disc. I promise you there are easier parts. Okay, so I'm just going to mark mine to make sure I don't go over. With this, I'd rather be safe and on the accurate side than having to redo this. Okay, so you'll see where I've placed the marks. You'll see that it's the same as in the front, and that mechanism will fit into the middle of that, and there will still be enough space for my small discs to glide through. So I'm going to place my glue within those guidelines, and I'm going to glue on my whole waterfall mechanism with the other disc, making sure that I've got it in the same line, on the same alignment, so that I'm not messing up where it needs to glide through. So it all needs to be straight and aligned with each other using those guidelines. I'm going to test it just very gently because of course my glue is still wet, but it looks good. So I'm just going to let that dry, make sure it dries properly. And once that's dried, I'm going to glue it onto this base. You're going to glue it onto the blank side because you still want your pretty picture on the other side. And again, as I said, you can do this in a whole different way. If you want to first glue this onto the base cover and then onto the base, doesn't matter, but as long as you do your waterfall mechanism before you glue it onto your base cover, because otherwise I think it will hinder you a bit if it's already on there and you haven't done the mechanism and the band and everything. See, I'm placing glue on the whole back of the disc band, and that's going to fit right onto this base cover. Of course, you want to get your top side and make sure you align it in the same manner so that it's nice and straight in that sense. Otherwise your picture on the back will be, or your mechanism will be skew on the front of the paper clip. Again, I'm gonna let that dry. It's a little bit difficult with the paper clip, so just make sure it's glued on nice and flat and dries properly. So I'm gonna give it a good test again and just see how it's working. You can cut those corners off, as I said, but I wouldn't recommend it. So it's getting stuck because of the way I'm holding it. So once it's glued onto your sorry, once it's stuck onto your journal, it will be a bit more stable because it's lying flat on your journal page rather than being held. Okay, so that looks good. So that's our first paper clip done, the waterfall disc, and now you can go ahead and decorate it. Do not put any decorations on your waterfall discs because that will make them stuck, unless it's like a really, you can use stamps and that of course, but don't glue any other elements onto your waterfall discs because that will make your waterfall get stuck. So I've just sped up the video because I'm just decorating. But just a note, each paperclip comes with its own fussy cuts in a sense, but of course you can mix and match them across the different paper clips. It doesn't have to be for just that one, it can be for all of them. So you can just play around and see what looks good to you. So you can print out and cut all the fussy cuts and journal word strips beforehand, if you want to do it that way. Then you can really see in front of you what you have to work with and go from that for each one. And of course, you can use your own elements like lace and ribbons and stickers or whatever. You can use stamps, your distress ink. I've distressed the edges. You can do whatever you want with this. Just make sure to not bulk up your waterfall discs. As I said, don't put any other cardstock or fussy cuts on there, as it will make it get stuck. So yeah, I'm showing you in my journal what it's looking like. So it's working well, and I think it looks so great. I'm actually really happy with that, how that came out. So this journal is also available in my Etsy store. It's a no-sew journal, also French country theme. Okay, so next we'll do the surprise box. This one is also a little bit difficult, but as long as you follow along with the steps, you should be fine. So I've got all the parts here, and I'm going to start by decorating this little square that's going to be on the inside of the box. So I've given some fussy cuts and words. Most of them will fit onto the square, otherwise you can use your own elements. So I'm going with the word bloom and grow and the little basket with the roses. And I think I'm also going to add a butterfly. And as I said, you can use your own element stuff that you already have. If you have a specific message, if you're gifting this to someone and you have a message for them that you want to put in the surprise box, you can do that. This is a really good one for a gift. So I'm using some of this sponge double-sided tape to give it some depth. I'm actually not sure what it will do inside the box, but I think it will look nice. And I can't decide where I want to put my butterfly. Okay, happy with that. And now that decoration is done for the inside of the box, we're going to move on to the sides that are going to be moving up and down to pop out your box. So you're going to fold the glue flaps, so the beige colored strips. You can fold them in both directions. It doesn't really matter on this. It's just paper as well. And by the way, make sure to print this on paper. It does say so on the files, but just make sure that these sides are printed on paper. And you, as I said, you can fold them in both directions, because it's actually up to you. You can decide, do you want your designed print on the front or your backing paper on the front or outside of the box. So you can change that if you want your inside to look a bit more pretty, or your outside. Doesn't really matter on this so much. So we're going to start folding the diagonal lines, and you want it to go from corner to corner, and that's pretty important. So it's like a 45-degree angle, and you want it exactly on that corner. So I'm struggling a bit to see, so I'm actually gonna ink my edges so that I can see my corners very well. That will actually be quite helpful. Of course, you can use your paper where you cut it out from as a guide, because it does have some guidelines on as well. Okay, I can see the corners very nicely now. So I'm gonna go ahead now and fold each one diagonally, and we want to do them in the same direction. So if you want a up and a down side on your image, Just make sure you have them all in the same direction, and then fold each one of them diagonally in the same direction. So I'm doing them on the inside, starting from the left hand corner upwards to the right hand corner. So we're going to start gluing these on, and you'll see automatically now they are going in the same direction because we folded them that way. So now we're going to glue each bottom strip onto one side of our decorated square, and make sure that you don't glue over the fold, because this needs to fold up and in to create your box, and make sure to get it nice and straight as well. Again, I'm using glue stick for this, but make sure to let it dry properly and that it's glued on properly as well. We're all going to be covering this base by gluing it onto our paperclip base cover, but you still want your box mechanism to be glued on properly. So just carry on and glue on all 4 of them, and make sure that they're not overlapping in the corners, and again that they're not glued onto the fold line, but that little flap can still fold in nicely without scrunching up or anything. I'm gonna let that dry first, and while I'm waiting for that, I will show you the base because it's so easy. So we're gonna fold it in half, and you can ink your edges if you want to do that, and make sure to ink your fold as well. And I'm going to grab the base cover, we're going to fold it in half. Again, I'm going to ink the edges, and then we can glue that over the base. So first place your paper clip, don't forget your paper clip. Same as before, we're going to just put it where that image indicates, and we're going to do the base cover. You're going to glue the whole base cover over your paper clip. And for this one, the base cover is smaller than the paperclip base. So we're going to do the cutouts now. And this can be a bit tricky if you don't have fancy tools. I'm actually just going to cut them with a scissor. There we go, I've cut them out. You can round the corners if you want. You don't have to. You can round them with a scissor. You don't need these kind of cutters. And again, I'm going to ink these edges. The insides can be a bit difficult to ink. What you can do is you can use Q-tip, or if you have a small sort of spongy brush, you can use that. Okay, so now we've got our top 2 parts done, and now we can carry on with folding this surprise box. So we're going to fold it in, fold it diagonally, and fold over the glue flap. And then the same with the next one, fold it in, fold it diagonally, and then we tuck it underneath the first one. And only then do you fold over the glue flap. So again, the second one goes underneath the first one. Fold it in, fold it diagonally, tuck it underneath the second one, and then fold your glue flap in. And we're going to do the same with the fourth. We're going to fold it in, fold it diagonally, tuck it underneath the third one, and then fold over the glue flap. So you'll see the glue flaps are also sort of stacked underneath each other. I'm just going to lightly pull on it. You can see the mechanism coming together there. And we're only going to place glue on the open parts of the glue flaps, not the overlapping parts. And I'm going to use double-sided tape for this one because I feel it just holds a bit better and also a bit quicker than the glue stick. So we're going to be pulling on this top quite a bit to open our box. So we don't want that to pull off. So a stronger glue is a bit better in this case. And again, I'm just going to trim that a bit, but I'm only putting glue or double-sided tape on the open areas, not on the overlapping parts. So I'll keep the video slow for you here so you can see that. So obviously your fourth one will be the longest one because that's the one we did last, and we folded it over everything. Your third one would be a bit less than that because its corner is tucked under the fourth one. Second one a bit smaller, and the first one is your smallest strip of double-sided tape. And take your time with this, because if you are going to get glue underneath the overlapping parts, your box is not going to work because it's just going to be stuck. So you really need to take care to only put your glue or your double-sided tape on the parts that are not overlapping. Okay, so once I've got that done, I can remove the tape and I'll show you how to glue on your top parts that have the circle cut out in them. So that one's gonna go just straight on, or you can put it diagonally if you want. And then the next one we're gonna put diagonally, so we have like a almost like a star shape, and it just looks nice and a bit more dimensional than just one panel, but you can use just one if you want to. And just try to get it nice and straight. Will just make your box look a little bit neater. And remember, I've marked the top side, so you can check your alignment from the back if that is easier. It doesn't have to be 100% straight, but it will look nice in your journal, because when you're tucking that paper clip in, you do want it to sort of be straight on the first cut out panel there, aligned straight in your journal. Okay, so I'm going to lightly pull on it and try and see. There you can see the mechanism. I'm not going to do it completely all the way just now, because it is easier when your base is stuck onto something, or in this case the paper clip is put over a journal page. So for the next one, I'm just going to go back to my glue stick, and just make sure you don't go over again with your glue, because some parts are sticking out. Remember, the corners are sticking out. You don't want glue on there and have your paper clip sticking on other things that it's not supposed to. I'm just going to add a little bit more around the cutout. Okay, so I'm going to glue it on, and I'm happy with how it looks so far. Just make sure you don't have your glue flap sticking out underneath, and that it's aligned with the circular cutouts right on top of each other. So as you can see, it's quite hard to pull open when it's not stuck onto something, but it is working. So now we can glue that onto our paperclip base next. I'm just going to make a little arrow to indicate the direction with a brown pencil. You don't have to do this, but especially if you're gifting this to someone or planning to sell it, they might not know how to pull this open. So a little arrow can give an indication of what the user of the journal is supposed to do. And now I'm just going to soften it with an eraser, just to soften that harsh pencil mark a bit, make it look a bit more faded and vintage. And there we go. Now we can do the base. So we've got our base ready, and we can just simply glue it onto that square. And we're going to glue the bottom of the surprise box to the square, the cover of the paperclip. And we're going to glue it nice and flat, and again let it dry properly before you try and use it, especially with this surprise box. If you're going to try and pull on it to try and open the box, it will actually come loose if your glue is not dry, because you're pulling on it. So I'm again going to use some double-sided tape just to get it to stick on a bit better, and I'm going to put some glue stick in the center. Okay, so now we can glue it onto the base, and again make sure to check where your top is, because you don't want your message on the inside to be upside down. So that's why we mark it as well, just to make it a bit easier. And we're going to glue that nice and flat, and again we're going to make sure whatever glue we're using is already dry before we try and play around with this surprise box. I've already picked out some fussy cuts and word strips, and I'm just gonna decorate the front and back. Be careful not to glue your top mechanism onto the base by accident. But basically you can put some decorations on those two top panels with the circular cutout, and also on the back of your paperclip base. You can use your own elements as well, some other papers and lace and ribbons. I think some bows, some ribbon bows would look really nice as well. And it's working really well. If you can't see the message inside, just make sure you're in a well lit area. It's a bit dark here where I'm recording. Okay, so let's start with the next one. And this one is the one with the pull out pages, and it's actually, I think, the easiest one of all of them. Again, we're going to start by folding our base in half, and make sure you're doing that nice and straight. And we're going to place our paper clip over our base, and we're going to fold our base cover in half. This one is also smaller than the base, so it's also fitting over the paper clip like the previous one with the box. And here you can see how the pocket will fit. You can arrange it a little bit differently. You can change the direction of the pocket. You can put it in the middle of that cover, or on the left or right, however you want to put it. Doesn't really matter. So I now have my page strip, or little book if you wish, and I'm just gonna fold the pages on my lines. The reason I'm doing this is it's just easier to get a nice fold and equal sized pages this way. And it doesn't really matter that the direction is wrong, because we can just fold it back into the right direction. But it does help you to get all the pages the right size and just some nice straight fold lines as well. And I'm actually going to do something else that might be a bit strange, but I'm actually going to decorate my pages while I have my book strip still on this page. Just because it's so small, it seems a little bit easier to maybe glue things on, but you can really do it as you wish. You can cut it out first and fold it and then glue on your decorations. You don't have to do decorations if you don't want to, because you can leave it for your user of the journal to put their own notes or decorations in. So that's completely up to you. Just make sure, if you're doing it like I'm doing it, that you don't go over the lines of each page, the fold lines. Don't glue your decorations over the fold lines, unless it's something thin that can actually be folded, which I think I'll do with one of the word strips maybe. Okay, I think that's that for now, because I just want to cut it out and start folding and see what it looks like. So you're just going to fold it accordion style, and as you can see, because I did those folds in the beginning, it actually goes quite easy to just fold it into a book, just folding back and forth. And if there's something that's a bit misaligned, you can just correct that. And as you can see, I did ink the edges. It just makes your book look so much more defined, especially if you're doing all the folds as well. And now we can glue it into the pocket. And the easiest way I could think of is actually just to glue it onto that glue flap, so that you don't have to struggle to get the whole thing glued underneath the pocket onto your base. So just place some glue on the inside of your glue strip and glue your page strip onto that. Okay, so there you can see I've glued it onto the inside of the glue flap, and I'm just checking my alignment. Just make sure you didn't go over your fold line and that you've got it straight in. Mine was a bit skew. And now you can go ahead and fold in your side glue flaps like that, and then you can place your glue on your 3 glue flaps, the sides and the bottom. So this time it's on the outside of them, because we're going to glue it onto our base. So I'm just going to do some of this tape roller. It actually works well for some instances. So I'm gonna fold them in and glue that onto the cover. And once I've got that on where I want it, I can go ahead and tuck the book strip back into the pocket. So you're just gonna fold it like it's supposed to be accordion style, and just tuck it into the front side of the pocket, and then gently push it in until that bottom flap is not bent anymore. So sort of rolling it in to the pocket again. Okay, and once that's done, we can glue that onto the base. You can do it the other way around, like with the other ones. I first did the cover and then the other stuff, and then glued them on. So it's up to you So you're going to be placing your glue on the whole of that cover, similar to the other ones we've done. Just don't get any glue on your little pull tab of the pull out book pages. You don't want that sticking to anything. So make sure you go all the way up to the corners. So go ahead and glue that over the paperclip base. Again, leave a little bit of space there for the top of your paperclip. And just make sure you glue that on nice and flat. Again, with the paper clip underneath, it's a little bit difficult, so you just need to press around the paper clip to get the glue to stick everywhere and be nice and flat. I'm going to decorate the back. I'm going to leave the front with the pull out book sort of blank and just do the front. Oh, sorry, the back. And I'll quickly show you in the journal. I actually forgot to show you the surprise box, but I'll quickly show you how this looks in the journal. There you go, and you can pull out pages, and you can have your messages there for the user of the journal. And tuck it in. As I said, gently push it back until that glue flap is completely flat again, sort of rolling it in. Okay, sorry for the background noise. I've got my little ones always making a noise here. Okay, so we'll start with the next paper clip, and this one is again a round base. You're gonna fold it in half and place your paper clip over. Again, fold the base in half, and that little extra piece is where your top of your paper clip is gonna go and be covered, and this base is also smaller than the the base cover is also smaller than the paperclip base. So just make sure you get your glue on all of that cover, and then glue it over the base so that your paperclip is where that extra little part is to cover it. And just press along the sides and everywhere over the paperclip to make sure you're gluing that flat onto the base. And we're going to let this dry properly and carry on with the rest while we wait for it to dry. So I'm going to get my circular book pages here, and I'm going to just choose the layout of how I want them. And there's actually two ways of doing this. You can glue the back of each page together, like with the other no-sew journals or mini books. You just glue the pages back to back, but I'm going to stack them, and I'm actually going to use a staple because it's you can hide it fairly easily. So I'm going to use a staple to hold them together in the middle, and then I'm going to use some string to just cover that up a bit. You don't have to use a staple. You can actually sew this together, or as I said, you can glue the pages back to back, however you feel like doing it. And just make sure you get it in the right place. It can be a bit tricky, so maybe do a test and see exactly where your staple lands. If you do just on a random piece of paper, just to check where you need to align it, or if you have one of those paper staples that opens up, sorry, staplers, then you can do it that way. Probably be easier. So I've grabbed my string and I'm going to tie it around a couple times and make a little bow. I think some lace or ribbon would also work really well. I don't have a big stash, so I'm just going with this cotton string. Okay, that actually looks quite cute. And then just fold it in half and you have your circular journal. Okay, so next we're going to do the pocket. It's a little bit tricky. So as you can see, I've already cut two of the glue flaps in half. Let me just trim this a little bit off. And the reason why I did it like this is because I didn't want you to cut out a gazillion glue flaps. So I thought, just do three and you can cut them in half. And then you sort of pull them over each other so that it forms a circular shape and not just straight glue flaps sticking out or rectangular shaped glue flaps. So you just pull them over each other in the back like that. So I'm actually first going to glue them into place, pulling each over the other just to get that round shape. And I'm going to do that for each of them just to keep them in place a bit. So I'm not gluing them onto anywhere else but onto each other, if that makes sense. Okay, so there you have the three, and they pull towards each other at the ends and glued on ever so slightly just to keep it in place. So we're going to fold them but not completely flat. We're leaving a space for our journal to fit in. So it's a little bit hard to show, but I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I'm not placing glue right up to the edge where it's joint on the disc. I'm only placing it towards the bottom. So the top part where that joint, where it joins onto the disc, is not glued on because that's our space that we're leaving for the journal. So we can go ahead and glue that onto the disc. I forgot to ink the edges, so I'm quickly going to do that. And now we can glue it onto the cover of the base for the paper clip. And of course we've got that space there, so it's a little bit tricky. So don't squeeze them completely flat, but just try to glue on the parts where you have placed your glue, leaving that space, as you can see, for your journal to fit in. Okay, and I'm now going to check if my journal fits. So the way you're going to do it is you're going to have your, if you did a ribbon or a string, you're going to have that sticking out of your pocket. Okay, I think I'm going to decorate this a bit before I tuck it in there. You don't have to. Again, you can leave it blank or you can do some decorations. I'm going to speed up the video because the decorations actually take longer than the assembly sometimes, especially if you like playing around and you don't know what you want to do and all of that. So I'm going to put this bright blue butterfly on this side, so it's going to stick out a bit from the pocket. And I'm going to do some more butterflies inside and some journal words. Again, you can leave it blank or you can decorate it. It's completely up to you. I'm going to have some blank pages. I'm not going to do all of the pages. And make sure you let them dry nicely before you try and do anything else with it. I'm also going to go ahead and decorate the base of my paper clip. And for this one, again, I think I'm only going to do the back side or the side where the little circular journal is not. So the side with the pocket and the journal, I think I'm going to leave that blank so that the little journal stands out. So now we can go ahead and fold our journal again after decorating and get that piece of string to stick out. And you're just going to tuck it in there and have your binding sticking out if that's the way you want to do it. So there you go, that looks so cute. I'll show you in the journal. Again, you can get this journal from my Etsy store as well. And thanks for watching, and be sure to check out all the other beautiful items in my store that you can make.